Our guest today is the host of one of the top 50 podcasts in the world. And he comes on and shares with us today the power of curiosity that's gotten him so far with the Learning Leader Show.
And he had so many great points, including one of the major keys on how you can be more effective in your sales calls.
This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and John learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
I can't believe it. We've interviewed over 200 people now, but this gentleman we're bringing in back for a third time, and there's a major reason why that. Ryan Hawk. Ryan is coming out with a new book. It'll be released when we release this episode, called The Price of Becoming. I've pre-ordered. I'm excited to read it. He's also the host of the Learning Leader Show that he's interviewed over 700 people. It's one of my all-time favorite podcasts. I listen to it every week. Ryan also does keynote speaking. He does group leadership development with his Learning Leader team of coaches. He's married to his wife, Miranda, and has 5 daughters, and he keeps it all going. So Ryan, welcome back to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thanks, John. It's good to be with both you guys.
Well, Ryan, I'm going to steal an idea because I've been an avid listener, and I got the first 2 chapters. I saw that you honored this book to your wife, Miranda. So I'm curious, because this is your 4th book. Why did you do that now? And tell us what you've learned from Miranda.
I probably should dedicate all of them to her. I think, nothing happens, I think, on your own. My friend Jason Gaynard says nobody is self-made. We're all community-made. And so thinking about the people that you intentionally choose to surround yourself with, when you analyze like why things have gone well, usually I've found it's because of those people that you're fortunate and lucky to be around. So yeah, in that case, like having your number one fan / person you look up to, person you admire. Yeah, it was pretty simple. So yeah, I think I know some authors like Dan Coyle and others, they dedicate all their books to their wives. So I probably should have done that. She doesn't need that. I think she was surprised. It was a little tongue in cheek. Miranda the Beautiful with an asterisk, which you'll see what that means when you get the whole book and see where that leads to. It's the very last page of the book that kind of defines what her beauty is. So it was a little bit fun. Morgan Housel dedicated his book to Kelly the Unicorn. So I thought, let's steal from that and use my nickname for my wife. And then what beauty actually, the definition of beauty is maybe different from what others think, and we do that at the end of the book. So if you read from the very beginning to the very end, you'll see what I mean by that. Hopefully people choose to do that, though. So I appreciate you asking, though. That's very cool.
Yeah. Your journey is so incredible, and yet you continue to learn, and that's the whole concept of the Learning Leader Show, right? 700 plus interviews that you've conducted, and I'm sure a lot of the knowledge that you've gained is in the book. So tell us, maybe 1 or 2 of those people that you've learned from on your show who really have helped influence your book.
Yeah, I was talking to Coach a little bit before we started recording. 2 people that I've learned from a ton that I haven't had on the show, but that's what this book is all about, are Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I've watched all their stuff over the years, commencement speeches, all their times in Omaha sharing with shareholders. And really they talk about the power of compounding. In their case, it's around money, investing in business. And I think if you really dig into the stuff that they do, it's very portable to living a fulfilling life. So the stem of the little seed of an idea of the price of becoming and the power of the compounding habits, that all comes, at least the initial thesis, the idea comes from those guys, and then using those lessons that they apply, again, to business and finance and investing, and seeing how they're applicable to just living an enjoyable, fulfilling, happy, productive, leave a positive dent in the world kind of life. So that's what I try to do. And, I'm very happy with the outcome. It took many years and over 100,000 words that we then trimmed down to 54,000. And that's what the final artifact is. So I try to kind of get rid of any potential fluff, anything that doesn't hit and just leave with the best of the best. It's my shortest book yet, and I think it's funny how that goes as you maybe get older and do more work. You try to cut more and more so that the reader can be honored by, let's not waste any of their time and only leave the best of the best. So hopefully the readers agree. We'll see, but that's what I've tried to do.
Because you're so old, right?
Well, I mean, I'm older than I was when I started writing. So
true.
my first book published 6 years ago. So here we go, book number 4. And yeah, every time I get done, I don't think I'll write another book. But it's just like, you don't ask a boxer. They all retire, right after the fight. And then you get with them kind of months later and they're ready to start fighting again. So maybe that will happen. But as of now, I'm kind of like, I'm tapped out. I told my publisher, we need some time here. I'm tapped out.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Ryan, one of the things intriguing is that, two of my heroes growing up, I never got a chance to meet either one, Martin Luther King Jr. and then John Wooden being a basketball coach. One of my treasured possessions is I do have an autograph of his Pyramid of Success to me. So that's something I really treasure. But I'm curious, because you talk a little bit about how do you meet your hero and how you reach out. And I know one of your heroes is a guy that I admire as well, Jim Collins. Can you tell us the process of how because when you first started, you weren't very well known as far as trying to meet people that you consider heroes?
Yeah, I mean, started from a platform of zero, no social media, no email list, nothing. Just was a sales rep at a company like bunches of other people. But one thing I did learn at that sales job was removing any fear of rejection, because I was making 60 cold calls a day. I was sending tons and tons of cold emails. And so I've taken what I've learned from that job at LexisNexis and now tried to apply that to my podcast. And so I always am working the cold email muscle. Even today, now that it's flipped and most of the guests come to me through whether it's themselves or just the people that represent them. And then I kind of just make the decision of who I'd like to have on the show after seeing the list of people that they work with. So, but I still think it's important to still be on the lookout and write those cold emails. And Jim Collins, that was an example that started the same. I wrote my first cold email to him and his team before I'd even launched my podcast. It went through many different back and forth phone calls with the team, some potential yeses, and only to then say, well, Jim's not doing podcasts right now. So we eventually did it. Episode 216 is the first time. I've since got to record with him a few times. The last time was recently out in Boulder, Colorado. We did that one in person. And so, yeah, I just think you have to eliminate any fear or potential embarrassment of rejection or being ignored. And so if you're afraid of that and that stops you from sending the cold email or making the cold call, then I don't like your chances of things going well long term. I think that's part of the deal. Unless you're already like mega famous, I think you got to be working that cold email muscle on a regular basis and not be afraid of people who are either maybe get annoyed or mostly they just ignore you when you're sending those, and occasionally get rejected outright. So I don't really care about that. I've worked that muscle a ton over my career, so I'm pretty used to it. And if it happens, that just means I'm just one step closer to getting a yes, and I'll keep going. And I think that's, if you listen to the most recent one with Jim Collins, he commented on that kind of relentless pursuit of trying to get in contact, because he knows that story. He was a part of it. It's actually him, and that's that meant a lot to me to hear him talk about that.
You say it's like building a muscle. That's really interesting to me. I've never heard that analogy when it comes to cold email and rejection, because some people can get rejected over and over again and then just be brought down and be drained and be completely demoralized by it. But you're saying it's building a muscle. So tell me where that mindset shift is, where you're able to think of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I lift weights every day too, so it's like a real thing of building muscles. And the way that you build muscles is you lift heavy weights. It creates tears in your muscles, and then when you rest, that's when they grow back, and they grow back maybe a little bit bigger. And I think it's the same thing with anything that's hard in your life. I mean, if you want to hike a mountain, well, then hike smaller mountains, and then a little bit bigger ones, and eventually you can hike really big ones. I know people that they can't handle rejection. They can't handle that adversity, or they're embarrassed of somebody to say no, or they think, I don't want that feeling. again, my first job, this is why I'm super grateful for Rex Caswell, who hired me at LexisNexis. My first job was making 60 cold calls a day, again, sending tons of cold emails. And many times we were selling to attorneys in that job. And so these are very highly educated, sometimes argumentative type people who aren't waiting for you to call them. They're using your competitor, and I'm calling them to try to get some sort of appointment and then eventually convince them that they should switch service providers when it comes to online legal research. Well, I mean, again, I got rejected constantly. And so that muscle just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger to where it gets to the point where you are unfazed by being ignored and being rejected. And I also felt some of the success that would happen every once in a while, and I got a little bit better and a little bit better. And so that feeling is like the juice, you get some of it and you want more. And so the same thing happened, especially at the beginning of the podcast, that like I had no inbound, I had nothing coming to me. I had just people who had no idea who I was. And if you, though, do it enough, that the rate of cold emails to people saying yes was probably like 1 to 25. So every 25 people I reached out to, maybe one of them would say yes. And so, but that was a shot though. And so I got that one, and then the next one, and the next one. And if you prepare and you do a really good job and it goes well, then they start telling their friends, and here we go. And so, yeah, I think it's just strengthening that of, one, losing any fear of rejection, and then feeling the little bits of success you have here and there, and then and create some momentum. That's part of it. And that's why, again, as you guys know, it's hard to have a podcast. It's hard to get this thing going. It's hard to create momentum. And that's why most people quit. So it's cool that you guys are here rocking and rolling, because I know how hard it is. And I admire people who are willing to keep at it day after day.
Well, thank you for that, Ryan. And I got to delve in because I'm right with you, the ability to overcome rejection, because we get it so often. But as leaders, we're always selling. But if we were to really zero in, and you're on a sales call, presentation, whatever you want to describe it as, if we were to break it down to 3 things that you think are really important to be effective in your sales presentation, what would they be?
Selling,
it could be your podcast, it could be selling, a program like you were doing when your first sales job. But I would think there's some consistency no matter what you're selling.
Yeah, I mean, one, that the person you're selling to does not care at all about you. They only care about themselves and how you could potentially solve their problem.
Right.
So the most important phase of the sales process is the discovery phase. This is where you are leading with your curiosity. You're understanding their current state. You're understanding their desired state and figuring out how big that gap is. And then the job of a great sales professional is that your solution bridges the gap from current state to desired state. So if we're going to talk about my podcast now, the early days, there isn't like, you almost have to depend on people like just wanting to talk about themselves or just being open to that, because I don't have a lot to sell. I have no platform. I have no listeners. I have no name. I don't have anything. I just have like this willingness to hustle, and so early days, you're just kind of getting it going. Now it's completely different. Well, it's ranked in the top 50 of all podcasts in the world. It's ranked in the top 5 of business podcasts in the world. Well, now that's why it's completely flipped. They're selling me on why I should have them on, right? And so it's completely flipped. Now, there still are some like mega famous people that there's a little bit of selling that's happening, but it's just making them aware of, hey, if you invest your time, it's going to be seen and heard on this type of platform, and that's like that's how like it's a win for everybody. Why does Tony Robbins want to do it? Well, Tony wants to get out a message. Maybe he has something he's selling, like a book or something like that, and so he's willing to invest an hour of his time because the audience is big enough that it makes it worth it. So it's changed, but if you look at like the current state, desired state, and bridging the gap now with a podcast, you're going to invest an hour of your time, which some of these people is worth millions of dollars, because it's gonna be seen and heard. The guest is gonna be prepared, gonna ask good questions, gonna be a good listener, gonna ask good follow-up questions. So you're actually gonna enjoy the hour, plus the end result, it's gonna go out to a lot of people that could potentially be maybe a buyer of the thing that you're trying to sell, or even it's just you kind of trying to make more of a name for yourself, which some of these guests are. So that's kind of how the math works now. But yeah, man, like it's for the people that are starting today, you got to do it because you just love it. You just love the grind of every part of it, because it's tougher. With that said, there are still tons and tons of people willing to go on podcasts now that 11 years ago, 12 years ago, when you'd pitch them, they didn't even know. Some of them didn't know what a podcast was.
Right.
So you almost had to help them understand what it was and then why they should do it. And there still were a ton of them that were like, what is that even? Is that the radio? Is it live? No, it's not the radio. It's not live, So there's like a little education now. You don't have to educate anybody. They all know, but it's just a little bit different. So, but it's fun. It's been cool to be a part of the whole evolution over the past decade.
Right. I got to delve in one little bit deeper. So, because I'm real big, I kid, people when I do leadership presentations that they're the CQA, the chief question asker. And, with you doing 11 years of podcasting, tell us some ideas on becoming more effective in asking better questions.
I think you have to have a genuine curiosity for that person, their story. You find them and people in general fascinating in a genuine way. And then I think the questions arise out of your preparation. And the best questions, in my experience, are almost always the follow-up question based upon you having a serviceable introductory question, then using the skill, again, of active listening, which most people don't do, all the way to the end, and then thinking of a way to get the person to go a little bit deeper. So sometimes a good question can be as little as say more, or it could be specific about something that person says, a specific question about something that person said. And so you're pulling on a thread that is, to me, whenever I'm preparing and helping others prepare, the word I always use is specificity. Get real specific. Don't be afraid to go deep on specific topics or ideas or a story or something that they said. And that's why I tell my guests before, I said, I have an outline, I have ideas, I have some potential questions, but I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen here. And that's what makes it so much fun.
Yeah.
These are the actual questions I would ask you if we were going out to lunch and nobody else was there. And so we may go down rabbit holes. This is me search, right? This is my own personal leadership PhD program. That's what my podcast is. That's what it started as. That's what it continues to be. I've learned that people seem to be attracted to somebody who's fully activated and really, really curious and asking questions that they themselves want the answers to. And that's what I do. Do I think about the audience some? Yeah, sometimes, but really I'm following what I'm most curious about, because I think that's an attractive quality in a person. I know I'm really into people who are genuinely curious about things, about people, about stories, and so that's what I try to do. So specific questions, I mean, we could probably run down a list of them. It'd be fun to kind of throw some back and forth via email. But in my experience, the best ones are follow-ups, and I don't have any of those in my script. I don't have any of those in my notes. They just kind of happen as we go. But that also takes a lot of repetition, right? Again, as you guys know, it's just really, really hard to be good at this without a lot of reps. There's just there's no substitute for doing the actual thing. And so, yeah, maybe some people are naturally better at the beginning, but I think a lot of people that are good at it, it's because they've done it a ton.
Yeah. Well, here's something I'm genuinely curious about, Ryan. One of the great things about you that's so unique is how you've rewritten your story. Okay. So, like, I know a lot of guys who played high school sports, right? And here we are, we're 27 years old, and that's their identity. That's still what they're talking about. You played at a very high level, even at the college level, right? And then obviously with your family ties, there's a lot of sports in your family. So how do you rewrite yourself from that into the learning leader, the author, the father, the husband that you are today?
No, I appreciate that. I think Andrew Brandt has become like a mentor for me. We went on a men's retreat to Arizona where I rented a house in Scottsdale. Was that 2 years ago? And we went on hikes and just kind of sat around a campfire and talked at night and had good dinners. And his whole thing was, I don't want to be, I always want to be like in the present of what I'm doing. And he has this mentality, which I write about in the book, that just never peak. So no matter what's happening, like he does triathlons and all this crazy stuff. And usually in that, like, all right, you got to make sure you're peaking at race time. He's like, I don't ever want to peak in life. I just want to always keep going a little bit. And so whatever has happened in my past, I want to certainly learn from it. I reflect on it from time to time. But to me, it's like I always want to be focused on my present and my future. So whatever happened in the past, I will, share the stories because they can be useful, maybe entertaining at times. But for the most part, I want to be focused on what I'm doing moving forward and always just trying to get a little bit better. I had a friend of mine, she said at my growth summit in Nashville, she goes, did you like bottle up and save all of these good interviews for your book promotion time? I was like, no. I mean, because that's the ones that have come out over the last couple months. I said, no, I'm just trying to always make the podcast better. So she's like, well, it feels like I go, and I didn't bottle them up. If you look, they've all just been the ones I've done most recently. So, I mean, I love a comment like that, but to me, it's just always trying to make whatever the thing is a little bit better. There's no dramatic up in my career. It's all just been kind of like this, I hope, and that's what I hope to continue to do. So there's no like dramatic increase of, oh, we went viral or this happened. Like that's never really happened. It's just a little bit. And that's funny. That's kind of a meta statement because that's really the entire thesis of this book is the power of compounding. If you just get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and you stack day after day for years, then you have you're increasing your surface area for lucky things to happen in your life. And so I'm just continuing trying to do that. And if I do that, again, I like the chances of good things happening.
Yeah. Ryan, I got to give you this hypothetical, because now you've had your show for a long time. You've talked to so many leaders. So dual hypothetical situation. A general manager of a NFL team calls you and wants some advice on how to hire their next head football coach, or same concept, a board member from a big business calls you to hire their next CEO. What advice would you give them?
I mean, it would probably there'd be tons and tons of questions. The questions would be about what are they trying to do? I would spend a ton of time learning about those specific people that were hiring me. I would try to learn about their business. I would try to learn like what is it that they value in a person and why. Eventually, I'd probably get to some of the things that I've seen that seem to help with productive achievers and people who sustain excellence. But I would go into discovery mode if that was a situation that stuff like that does happen from time to time. And so normally what happens is these are really, really bright people. We're lucky to work with 8s and 9s who want to be 10s. The 4s and 5s have no interest in my work. They're not attracted to it. They don't listen to my podcast. They don't read my books. We're too hardcore or too serious. I don't know. I think we like to have fun, but we also like to get after it. But when this happens, usually it's just deep discovery phase for me, asking questions. And then they usually figure it out. I don't really give advice. I don't give them answers. I work. It's funny. I just did this with Sam Kaufman at Insight Global, who's their CRO, and now they're a $5 billion company. And I started with them when they were 2 in 2022 or 1.8. I'm his sounding board. I'm his lifting partner. That's what he calls me. And so when we talk, I don't really ever espouse or give advice I just ask questions. I am his sounding board, and then he figures things out. And he has very challenging, difficult problems he's dealing with every day. There's 25 fires he's got to put out literally every day. He's leading thousands of people. And so I work as that sounding board. He calls me his lifting partner. So that means like we go to the gym together. We're lifting together. Nobody's ahead of the other guy. We're just kind of there to support one another. And I work as a sounding board to pose questions as they say things. And I think that's one of the skills I developed probably from the podcast mostly is when somebody says something it piques my curiosity, and I just ask. And some of the questions, I probably sound like a complete idiot. The problem is some people are afraid to look like an idiot, so they don't ask the question. I don't care. He knows that. The people I work with know I don't care if it's a stupid question or it makes me sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, or it makes me look like dude, shouldn't you know that? And well, no, I don't. That's why I'm asking the question. And I think somebody's got to do it, and that's a role that I play. So when people do bring me in or bring us in, it's usually just a ton of questions, and that's like the role of a good mentor. Think about like your favorite mentors in your life. What's the thought bubble that comes to both your guys' head? Favorite mentor, and now think about why they were your favorite mentor. And I would bet they were really good at being curious about you, asking you questions, and helping you figure out the answer on your own so that you have ownership over the solution. Because when you have ownership over the solution, you're much more apt to follow through and to do it because it's yours. It's not mine. So my job is to help people figure the answers out so that they have ownership over those solutions. They implement them, they stick to them, they do them. Because if it's my stuff, it's just like parenting, right? If it's from me, like my kids, they don't want to listen to that garbage. They want to listen to somebody who's actually smart and good, and that's not me. Obviously, just ask them. And so I think it's the same thing with all this stuff, is like help people figure out the answer on their own, and then they're going to be much more inclined to do it.
Well, one of the ways I know it's a good mentor is when they're thinking about my future more than their past. That's one thing that I like to think about. And you referred to that earlier too, Ryan, when you talked about staying in the moment and looking towards the future. One kind of conversation audit that I like to do now that I've learned recently is the concept of how much of this conversation is in the past versus how much is in the future, right? And you want to have a whole lot more either obviously in the present, ideally, or talking about what are our future goals, our future, what do we have coming up? Not, oh, remember that time back in senior year, you know? So you want to be around those people who are more future focused and looking to continue to grow. So that's certainly one thing that I know, echoing off of what you said earlier, but you clearly have a lot of opportunities to have people in your circle. You have a large network, but only the ones who can really help you move forward do you want to keep close to your circle. So how do you decide, other than maybe that one good reason, how do you decide who you want to keep closest to you to be, as you said, your lifting partner?
I love truth tellers. I love people who are getting after it. I love people who are unafraid to work really hard. I love people who want to leave a positive dent in the world. I'm attracted by people who are really curious. And then people who are accomplishing things. They're actually doing it. They're not just like talking about it. They do it. So if you look at my coaches, we talked with Brooke Cups before, but Brooke's a coach on the team. He's actively doing it. He's actively making a difference in people's lives. Garen Stokes, another coach on our team, same thing. These guys are highly accomplished. They've won state championships and all that stuff, but it's really about the way they live their lives. You look at the Hall of Famer Sherry Cole, another coach on our team, same thing, one of the most beautiful storytellers and writers in the world. When you look at her work, it's like these are people who are activated, getting after it, super curious, truth tellers who I have this big fear. One of my biggest fears in life, they know this because I bring it up to them all the time, is becoming unaware or becoming the leader that people point to and say, that guy has no self-awareness. And so I tell them, like, one of the ways to maintain a high level of self-awareness is to have truth tellers in your life who have very high character and are very competent people. So certainly Miranda is one of those and plays that role for me, but also those coaches, the people in my life that they know, hey, whatever it is, the smallest thing, like Coach Cole pulled me aside in Nashville and was like, hey, that opening 15 minutes, you were way too fast. And, that takes guts. I'm running the event. I'm hosting it. It's my thing. And to say you opened it by talking too fast, you were too excited, you were too nervous, whatever it may be, that's what I need, though. That's what I want. I crave it. So how do you respond to that? Even though it stings a little bit, you say, oh, my God, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to watch the tape, go back, and figure out how to be better the next time, knowing I'm going to be excited, so I'm going to talk really fast and be all nervous. Okay, knowing this, what will I do next time? Well, without her feedback, I don't know. Maybe I don't even analyze that or think about that. I just go because most people are afraid to tell you the truth. They don't want to hurt your feelings. Well, to me, like, yeah, you got to surround yourself with people who are willing to tell you the truth, who are very, very competent, and they care about you. They want what's best for you. I try to be that for them as well. But for the ones who are just cool to exist in the world and get to Friday at 3:00, I'm just not that interested. That's fine. It's not a bad way to live for some people. It's just not. I'm just not one of those people. So if that's you, if you're kind of cool to just exist, kind of bump along, dabble here and there, probably not for me. And so sometimes you grow out of friendships and stuff. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think sometimes that's the way it goes. And I want to be around truth teller, get after it type people who are making a dent. And when I'm around people like that, I'm much more apt to do it myself. So that's what I try to do.
That's a great point, Ryan, because I was very blessed. I had three, what I called my right-hand men in my last 27 years of coaching. And I always told them, tell me what I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Just feed me. He says, I'm not always going to agree. And sometimes in a game, because I got to make a lot of quick decisions, I'm sometimes say words I don't want to say to them. But because we've built such a strong relationship, we could handle that.
How did you respond when they'd give you tough feedback, like, Coach, you messed this thing up, or whatever, something like that? Like, how did you respond to that?
During a game, sometimes not so nicely, but afterwards we would always do a reflection section, and that's where I would usually settle in and really think about it.
A reflection section, is that what you called it?
Yeah.
So you'd sit down afterwards and say, hey, in the second quarter, I messed this up. You told me I messed up. I didn't handle it necessarily well in the moment, but let's talk through that, or something? Like, is it usually like a tactical thing, or what was it?
It was a combination of tactical and also continuing to grow our relationship, so that, because sometimes I might say something that I in some ways regret, an F-bomb may come, I'm not a big swearer, but the case that would swing out. And then, that's where I would say, hey, I appreciate, your feedback on that. I did not handle that well. I will do better with that. And even when I screwed up again, but we always had those segments, because I always thought it was interesting. Two things I'll say. I don't want to get off on a huge tangent because I got a couple more questions for you, but is that one is that I wanted their input. And if we weren't able to battle and just, for example, like one time, my assistant said, go zone. Now, I was predominantly a man-to-man guy in basketball, but I listened to him, and the other team froze, and we ended up winning the game late. Okay. And I praised him to the reporter afterwards. So, he got that support. But there's other times they say, Coach, run this. I go, we haven't practiced enough. We can't do that. And then we'd have to delve deeper after, because in a game you have so many quick decisions, often I would tell them, I'm not so much your friend right now. We're working together to try to get the same accomplishment. That in that case is winning a game, right?
I think that those stories are so cool, because if you look at one of the commonalities among people who are sustaining excellence over a long period of time, I think they have those truth tellers in their life.
Yes.
But part of it is our responsibility as leaders for how we respond to it.
Yeah.
Because I've had the boss before that tells me, hey, give me the feedback. Give it to me. I want it. I want to get better. And then let's say you give them the feedback, and maybe it's critical because you're doing what they asked you to do. And then they immediately start making excuses, explaining it away, being very defensive. What is that? What is that leader now training their people? They're telling them,
Right.
I can't handle it.
Yes.
I said I wanted it. My actions are proving that I was basically lying. I don't want it. And so I think it's really critical, this feedback thing, because we're talking about self-awareness and getting better, is we have to think about, how am I going to respond when I get some feedback that stings me, that maybe hurts me at my core? Because if you're doing it right, and if you're pushing, and if you're striving, and you're getting after it, that should happen every once in a while. If you're like really going for it, you should mess up, or whatever. Like, we're all humans. Like, we're messy humans. We mess things up all the time, right? If you're doing that, you should, and the people are actually doing what you asked of them, you should be getting critical feedback from time to time, or depending on where you're at or what you're trying to do, maybe a lot. And if you can't handle it, you're not prepared to handle it, don't ask for it. So I think it's on us as leaders, if we want to keep getting better, if we want to keep maintaining high levels of awareness, we have to prepare ourselves. Like, I may get stinging feedback, And the first thing I got to do is look them in the eye and say thank you. It doesn't mean they're right all the time, because every once in a while, you get feedback and it's wrong. They're not perfect either. But we still need to be grateful for it. We still need to show them that we can handle it, that we're okay. Like, in fact, we want it. I think those in sports backgrounds probably are better at this. I mean, every single repetition in my life, from my freshman year in high school through professional sports, was on tape. And so we got graded individual, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, full team, and then obviously the games. Every single thing, every rep was recorded, and we got graded. And so I love feedback. I'm used to it. I'm my coaches ripped us in front of my teammates all the time, and I think that's another thing. You talk about cold emails or cold calls. I think the filming and getting feedback on every rep has also been a helpful thing in my life for whatever it is I'm doing moving forward. It's a very, very portable lesson to be somebody who's gotten tons and tons of feedback over the years.
That's a great point. I think building a relationship with your leadership team is so important, because I always laugh, because my right-hand man was my junior varsity coach. And, often parents would go to him and tell things like, and if we didn't have a good bond, because I always would say, I want you to tell me everything. And I may not agree with you, but we're going to work this out. But I don't want to be shocked because you left something, you didn't tell us something. So that's a great point. I'm going to dive in a little bit with your learning leader team. I don't want to steal all your thunder, but I would like to give our audience, if there was one or two activities you do with leaders to help them, either help them as leaders or help them in building a great culture, could you share one or two activities you do?
Well, it all starts with leading yourself. And so all of the initial foundational work when we are with leadership teams, basically what happens is the CEO or a leader of a company is attracted to the podcast or books. And so they'll reach out and say, can you do all of that stuff? Like, embed yourself within my team. And they're like going to outsource leadership development to us. And so a lot of times they've had bad prior experiences with certain companies or people who do that. So there is something to overcome. The reason why I think our team is really, really good is because our guys, they live it out. It's who I learned from. It's who I continue to learn from. I learn just as much in our prep meetings as anything that I do, listening to us kind of wrestle with ideas. So we're focusing a lot on the foundational elements of a person. What is your core purpose in life? We're going to help you figure that out. What are your core values? We're going to help you figure that out. What are the critical behaviors that make those core values true? And so these are foundational things that most people have not fully defined. And it was really cool. We were in Arkansas on Monday doing this, and a person pulled us aside. We'd been working with them for 6 months. And she said, I'm like, the stuff you guys do has nothing to do with my job. It has to do with my life.
Yeah.
And it's helping me more as a mom, as a wife. It's helped me more in my community. And because of that, I'm just so much better when I come to work. And so for the business owner that she told him that, it was like there was no better way to say, like, this stuff is life-changing, because we're not focused on, we don't know the tactical things in their job. That's not what we do. We do know the foundational elements of trying to understand yourself better and get very clear on who you are and what you're trying to do, and then we help you live those things out. And the cool thing is, leadership, understanding yourself, it's not a like, okay, I get to work, I flip the switch and it's go. It's a 24/7 thing. And so if we're doing it right and it's effective and they care and they're committed, it helps them in everything that they do, because we're working on them as a foundational person. Now, as we progress, we get more tactical with specific things, and we talk about communication and conflict resolution and running great meetings and having one-on-one. Like, we do all that stuff, but it all starts those first 6 months. We're not doing any of that. It's all about you and leading yourself and understanding yourself. And I think that's why people are surprised a little bit, saying, like, I thought you were going to come in right away and just be like, all right, this is how you do a one-on-one. It's like, we won't talk about anything like that for the first 6 months. We'll eventually get to tactical stuff. But for the most part, it's all about you and leading yourself. The fun part about that for me is that never ends. There will always be parts of that. And we all need to keep practicing and keep working on that. even when we start adding into some of the more tactical things and leading teams type stuff. So yeah, I would say that's the part that sometimes is surprising for people is we're not talking specifics about their company or anything other than just them for usually the first 6 months of working with teams. And that's why, the best marker of are you guys doing a good job is that we've worked with our clients for years. And they want us to keep working with them. Well, that's great. That's what we hope to do. That means that we're doing a good job.
Can you just dive in one example? Because I love your thought, because I always kid John all the time. The first person you got to lead is yourself. Do you have an activity that you could share with helping people kind of learn about themselves?
Well, I mean, okay, if you want to, so we'd always start with purpose first, but let's say you got that, like we're there. We have like a formula for how to figure out your own. Let's go to like core values, which are talked about. They're hanging up on the walls everywhere with
Right.
companies, so everybody knows about core values. Nobody knows what their own are unless they've done this work. And so usually that will be, we'll talk to them about, we'll do it as a team and individually. We'll talk to them about who are people in your life that you deeply admire for what they do, and more importantly, how they do it. And these could be people that you know and people that you don't, but maybe you've read about. So maybe they're like Abraham Lincoln is one of those people. And then another person is their dad or their mom. And so we start then describing and pulling out like, what is it about them that you deeply admire? And so we're deconstructing the people that they look up to and what it is about them. Then we're trying to figure out, and sometimes we'll give them like a word box of a bunch of values. We're trying to figure out, okay, now what is it for you? Like, how does it's like for me, thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent. Well, when I did the exercise with Brooke Cups, it's partially why I wanted to work with him, is because he's who helped me get clear on this. I thought of those people I really looked up to, like my dad, my mom, my brother AJ, like the things that what they've done in their life. One of my favorite bosses, Dustin Kim, she's brilliant. Brian Miller, another great boss. So like I'm writing all their names down. I'm putting all of their attributes, what they're about, and then how does it mash together with me? And that's how I got to thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent. Those are aspirational values for me. I'm trying to live up to that. So getting really clear on what those are for you, it is such like a freeing, confidence building exercise to clearly define what you value. And it's amazing. I told Brooke this too. I go, we're going to get in there, and now we've been doing it for years, so this is way wrong. But I said at the beginning of all this, I go, like half the room or 3/4 of the room are going to roll their eyes because they've already done all this stuff.
Right.
And we get in there and almost nobody, now we've been doing it, for 5 years? Almost nobody has done this. And I'm talking some killers, right? People doing great things in the world. They may have like a little bit of an idea, or maybe they went to like a workshop or something, but for the most part, almost nobody has done that work.
Wow.
And that's what blows my mind. And then we do it for companies too, because sometimes they have values hanging on the wall. We find out that those aren't real, or they have 10 of them or something, which is obviously not real, because you can't have 10 values. It's way too many. Right. So you can't even remember 10 values. So that's the type of stuff that we'll get to that blows my mind. I was shocked, and I still am shocked when we go in and we meet with leaders and they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue of what those are because they've never done anything like that before. So, yeah, that's one example of a thing that we would spend some time on.
What's a good amount of core values to have?
3 or 4. What
Okay.
can you remember? Like, what can you actually remember? What do you think? 3 or 4?
3 or 4. Good.
What would it be for you? Like,
Good stuff.
Have you done it?
I like the number 3, and yeah, I think there's a lot of power in that, and remembering that in public speaking, and 3 things you can hang on the wall. Very cool. And Ryan, I got to circle back to one thing you mentioned, because the woman that you talked about who said your stuff is helping her be a better mom more so than better at work, but it all kind of integrates and shows up in that space too. How much of that comes from your own experience of, having 5 daughters? Like, a lot of people say, well, I got to choose my career or my family. You've been able to make it work for both. So tell me about that experience and how that helps other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question for Miranda. I'd like to think that I've gotten a lot better as a husband, first and foremost, and as a dad from doing all of this work, from learning so much, from working the curiosity muscle and skill, which I think is absolutely a skill that can and should be developed. being interested in people, understanding how to be a good listener, a better listener. Super important as a dad. I try to be into what they're into. We love going on walks, long drives, sitting at a bar together to eat dinner side by side, because I found kids and girls, in my case, are way more open to opening up when you're not staring directly at them, but you're shoulder to shoulder with them. So car rides, I taught the older ones to drive. Didn't really teach them, but they're getting their hours, and I'm sitting shotgun, and that's some of the best conversations. I miss those days, because now we still have one more that is to go, but we had 50 hours that they need to get, and so that's a lot of good quality time where you can have conversations and nobody's looking at phones because you're learning to drive. So to me, yeah, it's been all about being as present as possible with every interaction at home, and being really curious about a person. So to me, you've probably heard of the love language assessment. Maybe you've done it. Maybe you've tried to implement it. I've had them on my podcast. We've talked about it. To me, curiosity is the ultimate way to show somebody love, to be genuinely curious in them, their story, and listening to them and asking them follow-up questions. And I think that's what I've gotten better at as a dad, is being curious and into them, and asking them questions, and listening and asking them follow-up questions, and then going out and doing things. Like, they're all into this, the older ones at least, into this concert phase. So by the way, super expensive now. It's crazy. Like, you talk about the live experiences. You know what people want? Like, they want to be in person, doing stuff, listening to music, dancing with friends. So that's been a big thing for us. College visits, ski trips, riding up a lift together, all that stuff I've just tried to be much more intentional. I talked to Bill Perkins a few years ago. He wrote Die with Zero. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I subscribed to everything he talked about, but he was really, really big on experiences. And so if you look at how we try to use our fun tokens, which is the money we make, we try to use our fun tokens on life experiences with each other. So we've been much, much more intentional about traveling together as a family. And that's nothing better in our lives than the cool trips we've gone on together over the past few years.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of advice you give to them?
Advice I give to who?
To your daughters.
I don't try to give them advice. I think they make fun of me. They mock me. They'll freeze frame me on YouTube and do my faces. No, I keep a kind of a list of things that I like, life lessons, kind of like Kevin Kelly's 68 bits of advice. And maybe at the end of a love note or something, I will put one of those on there, as I keep a running list of things to do. But I think mostly I try to just be interested in them. I try to be curious about them. And most importantly, and I know this from being a kid, and I still follow my parents, is Miranda and I are the models. And so it's really about how we live each day. It's about how we treat people. It's about us picking up the trash on the sidewalk. It's about us treating the Chipotle line with respect and noticing that they start saying thank you when we thank every person who makes our burrito bowl, stuff like that. All the little things I think are really, really important of how we treat the janitor, just like we treat the CEO, which is with respect and eye contact and standing up to shake their hand and asking them questions about them, and then listening and asking them a follow-up question. All that stuff is what we try to live out each day. And hopefully, they're picking up on that. I don't know. Again, I think, we still make fun of my dad all the time, especially if we play golf or something. So in a way, that's how we show him love. So I don't know. I guess maybe I should get concerned if they stop making fun of me. But yeah, there's no shortage of that's for sure.
So caught, not taught is what you're saying too. They're not
think, isn't it how it was for you guys? And is that what you try to do?
Absolutely.
Ultimately, our first job is to be that model. And so we just try to be the model of what we want to see. I think Miranda and I are very intentional about creating cringe moments in our kitchen, for example, hugging, kissing, grabbing butts, seriously, all that stuff is a thing we do because physical touch and showing love for somebody, saying thank you to each other for the things that we do for the family and for one another in front of them is a really big thing, because gratitude is super important. And so Miranda always needs to, in my mind at least, I need to be showing them that I'm very grateful for how hard she works and the specific things she does. So I think gratitude with specificity said in front of your kids is something that I do every day. And now it's just our default. I don't think we think about it. It just happens because we know that's important. I don't want them to be ungrateful. I don't want them to be entitled. I don't want them to take people for granted. And so I try, like, the best way to do that is just to live it. And again, we still mess up all the time, but that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So my parents used to say, do as I say, not as I do, but it's really quite the opposite.
Well, I mean, you're going to probably do as they do,
Exactly.
without even thinking about it. And whatever they're doing, they're making that thing normal. So if I came home and drank a case of beer every single day, they would stop thinking about it, but that would become the normal thing to do, right? If I came home and didn't acknowledge Miranda and say thank you and give her a hug and kiss and talk about why I'm grateful, like, the fact that we do that because we want it to be so normal that they don't even think about it. Like, that's just the way it's, because, like, I learned this when I went to college, and then after college, like, what became normal, what was normal for me, like, I just thought that was how everybody had it. Like, my football coaches, my parents, I thought that's how everybody had it. And then you get to college and it's like, no, their parents aren't like that. Their high school coaches weren't like that. And then you start, and then your eyes get opened more and more as you get older because you talk to people and you hear their stories. And so, but I've followed a lot of what my parents, I still do. I mean, I still do. My dad is the most grateful person in the world, and so we still follow. They're still the models, even though they're 70 years old. We're all paying, my brothers and I are paying very close attention, and they're still the models for what to do. So I don't think that ever stops.
I agree. I just wrote a newsletter. We lost my dad about a year and a half ago, but he was my greatest model and mentor. He's my high school basketball coach. So but boy, he was just a man of following his actions. He didn't
Isn't
say
that
a
cool,
lot.
man? How grateful are you, Coach, to have had him, man?
Oh, so grateful. I mean, very blessed. In fact, I kid him that I drove him out of coach because he went into administration. I have three younger brothers, and they all played basketball. None of them played for him, so I was the one that was blessed. So yeah, but
I love that. I love that.
well, Ryan, I know we're coming to the end. We're very grateful. I have one last question, then John will wrap things up. And it's really good to have you for a third time. And use the baseball metaphor down the road. Maybe we'll even get a walk with you and get a fourth time. But so with that, though, you've written 4 books. Our goal is to help young and emerging leaders. Two-part question. Of the 4 books you've written, what book would you recommend to a young leader? And then the second part of that is, outside of your books, is there a book that you would recommend a young leader to read?
Oh man, there's tons of them. I love Dan Coyle's Culture Code. I don't know if that's like the young leader book. That's probably like you're building something, building a company, or you're building an organization. Culture Code's probably great for that. Of my 4, I mean, this one about the price of becoming is all about leading yourself. And so I think that's needed. If you want to get really tactical and specific, and let's say you went from individual contributor to now a first-time manager, I think that's what Welcome to Management was written for, because I bombed so much of that those first 18 months when I was 26, 27, and got promoted from individual contributor to now leading the team that I was a member of. So I'd say that's probably good. But yeah, Dan Coyle's work in Culture Code. I mean, Good to Great, still a classic from Jim Collins, and Great by Choice. We read that as a team when I was a frontline sales manager. The 20-mile march. Brian Miller was my boss's boss, who again is still one of my friends and mentors to this day. He got me onto Great by Choice. So I'd say that those books still hold up and are really, really good. And then another book that I'd say opened my eyes, because in the world of quarterback play, it's very like black and white. Like, for one guy to play, the other guy doesn't get to play. So like, it's a zero-sum world. When I finished playing, I read a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant, and that kind of helped me realize that, like, givers and being someone who gives without expecting anything in return is a great way to win at life. That wasn't the case necessarily as a quarterback, because again, it's zero sum. Only one guy gets to play quarterback. And so I had to like get that beaten out of me as I got into the professional world, that the world is the opposite of zero sum. In fact, the more you guys win, the better it is for me, and the more I win, the better it is for you. I mean, that's literally how this works. And so it's the opposite of what I grew up doing. but it took some work. And so I think give and take really helped me understand that better, because Adam Grant is such a good writer, such a good storyteller, and so good at using the data and the science to show why we should be givers. So yeah, I would say those are a few that probably are impactful, could leave a mark on you if you're trying to make a difference.
I'm guessing you being the backup to Ben, that you probably inspired him to a Hall of Fame career. So yeah.
I was just the next guy in line that he beat out for the job. There's many in that line from high school to college, and Tommy Maddox in the NFL in his first year. So, and then he never looked back. So, no, I don't. My brother played against him, which was funny, and he got a one-handed interception off of him in a cold game. It was really fun to see. He kept the ball and all that stuff. So it was fun. They talked afterwards, and he was great. Ben has become like really interesting, and it seems like a good family man. So it's cool to see what he's done. But yeah, it's that's life, right? Sometimes you run into somebody who's just better. That's life.
Although you never know. Maybe you pushed him to be better, and then you should get like a piece of his Super Bowl rings too, right? Isn't that how this works?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story to let John wrap up. I apologize, but this is many years ago. I had a pretty good team, and we were going to New York City. And so it was back when we were actually sending VHS tapes through the mail. Okay, so this is a number of years ago. And I'm sitting in the office watching the tape, and my assistant coach goes in and goes, "Coach, what do you think?" I said, "Well, the team we got to play is beating this team by 30, and we can't beat the team that they're beating by 30." So, yeah.
sometimes my quarterback coach in college, he'd say, "Well, they're on scholarship too," and so yeah, it's like sometimes you get beat, man, and it's good for you. Ultimately, it's good for you to fight through and to respond to those tough moments and realize, like, who do you think you are? Like, you better keep working. You better keep working. So I think there are two types of people in the world: those who are humble and those who are about to be humbled. Right. Sometimes we need to be humbled, and it's good for all of us. It's good for all of us.
It's funny because the kind of second part is we ended up playing that team in the same tournament a number of years later, and they had a great team. They had two guys end up playing the NBA, and we actually beat them. So it was kind of a full cycle thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love those stories. Love it.
Right. The price of becoming, tell us where it's out now. So tell us where we can get it.
learningleader.com, as well as any other. That's where I put all like the bonuses and stuff. If you go to learningleader.com, also anywhere you buy books. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy books, price of becoming. So hopefully, I hope people want to buy it and read it and implement the stuff. I think if they do, good things have a potential for happening. So appreciate you guys very much. All your prep is very noticeable. It's not, I don't take that for granted, because I know it takes time and effort and a lot of work, and that means a lot. So thank you guys very much for that.
Thank you, Ryan. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, you'll definitely enjoy the Learning Leader Show as well with Ryan Hawk. You got a lot of interviews to pick from there, so you can binge that and learn a lot from Ryan. He's the Learning Leader himself, and we officially completed the hat trick today with Ryan on 3 times here on the Limitless Leadership Lounge, and I can't think of a better guest to have on our first guest to have on 3 times. So thank you, Ryan, for your time today. Links down in the show notes to grab that book, learningleader.com. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.